Hello and welcome to the video. This is my overview and review of this thing here. This is the Phoenix HD camera from RunCam. Now, I looked at one of their new cameras for the DJI HD system, the MIPI, a couple of weeks ago now. And this is the brand new one that's just come out. Available in a box like this with an air unit light and all the other bits, including the cables, and also available as a separate camera if you want to replace or upgrade something that's already on one of your models. A little bit more expensive than the MIPI camera that they've already brought out. And when I was looking on the website, I was kind of struggling to see what the big differences between this and the MIPI are, but I think I figured that out. So in this video, standard stuff, let me show you what's inside this box and how it all comes, run through the specs, and go through some footage and kind of cover what this new Phoenix HD camera is all about. So again, available in two different versions. There is the Phoenix HD on its own with the cable to connect to the air unit, and then you have the one on the left, which is the full system, which also has the air unit light, the cable and the antenna and everything as well. Now the specs on this on the website are a little bit interesting because trying to compare this directly with things like the MIPI was actually quite tricky. The resolution is 1280 by 720 by 60 frames a second, which is the same. The image sensor is the big difference here, and that gives you a slightly different field of view. So if I just pull this thing out of here, you can see first of all that the little manual on the top is actually one of the best little manuals to show you how everything goes together. I actually like that rather than the DJI version that you get it. You have a little flying lead to connect it into your flight controller, and then in here is exactly what you'd expect. You have the air unit light, you have a little antenna that isn't connected, you're going to have to pop that on, and you also then have the Phoenix HD connected in. The nice thing about this is that all these cameras, I had this question the other day so I'll mention it, do seem to use exactly the same cable, so it's relatively easy to swap them over. Rolling shutter on this, dimensions are 19 by 19 by 23.5 millimeters, and it weighs about 7.5 grams. In terms of the layout and the camera itself, it looks and feels very much like a classic RunCam camera, whereas the MIPI was a very short compressed camera, which was kind of great if you didn't have lots of space. And you can see that if I put this new camera by the side of the MIPI camera that's actually in this little model here that I'll use for the flight footage. This is a GEP RC Cinelog 25. I will be having its bigger brother in to review soon, but you can see here that the camera itself is quite a bit deeper than that original MIPI camera. Now I'm going to install it into the same model. Interestingly, things like the Nebula Pro and stuff that I've had in this model don't exhibit any kind of jello in the image, but lots of the newer cameras that are using the sensors that people can get hold of do actually seem to have that. So I've taken the back off the camera and popped the cable in so we can take it out for a fly. The performance of the camera in daytime is exactly what you would expect. It's a very RunCam looking image. The colors are natural, the saturation and the way it's handling light is really, really good. The image itself is nice and sharp. There is that little bit of jello, so this is like all of the latest generation of cameras that I've tested on this model. Yeah, is that little bit of that, but the image itself is actually really nice. When you mount it, just make sure that you have a nice secure mounting and that everything is balanced on the model. It is a very, very clear image. Focus mode for this particular flight was turned off in the goggles to preserve the edges, and you can see here how nice everything looks. This is just the DVR from the goggles. I haven't done any post-processing at all. Having flown the MIPI camera on that other model, I think I prefer this image a little bit more. I don't know whether it's the lens array or whether it's the individual sensor, but it just seems a little bit clearer and a little bit more punchy in terms of the image. But the real surprise of this camera wasn't how it performed in the daylight, because that's kind of what I hoped it would be like. It's actually taking it out in dusk late evening conditions to see how it performs, because it performs exceptionally well. This is what it looks like to the naked eye. I took this photo in the back garden, and then holding the model, I just walked around, and you can see what an amazing job it's doing in that low light. I would be very happy to fly in this level of light using this camera. And I guess this is kind of showing that it's more like the Cadix Polar than it is the RunCam MIPI. This has a much broader range of light sensitivity, and it's actually really good when the light starts to get a little bit darker. So after flying this as much as I have, I like it. I like the fact that it is a very natural RunCam style image in the daytime. I actually prefer the image over the MIPI. I also like the fact that it's a little bit deeper, the lens sticks out further. It means that you don't have the same issues with if you're mounting it inside a foam plane or something else. You can make it so the lens is nice and clear and gives you an unobstructed view over the nose of whatever you're doing, or you're slightly more in front of whatever props are on the model that you've got it fitted on. I also like the fact that they've provided it in two different SKUs. You have the one with the air unit light, and then you have the camera on its own. That gives us another option to get hold of air unit lights from another manufacturer, and I will be getting a couple more in for future builds, because in the 16:9 format I actually like that for flying fixed wing. Personally, I prefer 4.3 for quadcopters when I can get it. And those are the two things that I would say about this. First of all is be aware that this is only 16:9. Again, there's no changes. This seems pretty common with the other RunCam MIPI camera. Things like the Cadix Polar are the same. It seems to be the sensor availability that is the problem here. They're having to use ones that only give you the 16:9 format. And there are no settings that you can change in the camera. When you're using this in the DJI FPV system, you try and go into the camera settings to change it. That's just greyed out. There isn't that option. Now, I did struggle to figure out what was different between this and the MIPI from the RunCam website. I would love if RunCam had a more consistent way of actually giving you the specifications, but with the testing here, it's pretty clear that the big difference with this, apart from the fact that it's a different physical size, is that different sensor and also the different lens array that they have on the front to get all the information focused down. The results of that are a slightly wilder field of view, and in my opinion a slightly nicer image. But the big news is that also gives it a real low light performance, and I'm surprised they're not making more of that on the website. It is great to see more cameras coming out for RunCam for the DJI HD FPV system, so I'm fascinated to see what they do next. For me, I would personally love something that can compete with the Nebula Pro, which would give us the 16:9 and 4.3 in the RunCam family. But I guess we've got to wait for some of the chip shortages to sort themselves out before RunCam will be able to do that. But when and if they do that, I'll definitely be getting one in to try. So that's the Phoenix HD camera, and that is how it performs. Really nice, beautiful picture, and great when the light starts to fade too. Thank you for spending your time today watching that video. You can find me in all the usual places on social media, and if you're trying to learn about a subject, then check out the playlist. All of my videos are organized into easy to follow playlists that if you're trying to learn a topic will take you from the basics right the way through to some pretty advanced stuff.